Hey guys, my name is Jen and welcome to the Iris Ministries YouTube channel. If you've been here before, thanks so much for coming back. And if this is your first time here, please make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified of all the new videos that I'm going to be releasing. I have a ton of cool stories to share and just some cool life lessons and God stories. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Now, today in this video, what I wanted to talk about is how simplifying my life and specifically how downsizing and decluttering my life really opened up my relationship with God, helped me to go deeper with Him, helped me to hear Him more clearly, and ultimately helped me to discern my purpose and my actual true calling so much easier. So I really just kind of wanted to give a quick background of where I came from and what my downsizing experience is. I know that some of you that may have followed me from my other brand, Live a Fast Life, you may already know some of this story. If you read my book, Live a Fast Life, or if you read any of my blog posts, I also would speak at a lot of tiny house festivals, and I was on Tiny House Big Living on HGTV. So if you know me from any of that, you may know part of this story. But for those of you that are new to it and aren't familiar with me, pretty much the story is that I was pretty much the average middle-class American. Like a lot of us, I just had way too much stuff. I lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo by myself, and yet every cabinet was full, every closet was full, just a lot of stuff. And it was really one of those things where I think I was kind of blind to it, like most of us are. I didn't feel like I had a lot of stuff. I'm an extremely neat and organized person, so it's not like I had clutter everywhere. It's just that I had a lot of stuff put away in all the cabinets, all the drawers, all the closets. And really the catalyst for me was when my mom passed away in 2013. And I just feel like when she passed away, the way I describe it is I always say I feel like blinders were taken off of me. But I don't know, I kind of woke up to life, and I saw a lot of similarities between how my mom had lived and how I was sort of starting to follow her. And even though she was a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous woman and everybody loved her and she was my very best friend, there were certain things about her life that I didn't want to follow in her footsteps. I didn't want to let fear run my life and keep me from doing things. I didn't want to kind of, be held back and self-imposed being held back. So I really just had this shift in my mind where I was like, I realized by watching her that you really, truly don't know how much time you have. It's like you kind of hear that, but you really honestly don't know how much time you have, as much as we don't like to think about that. And so I saw her like literally run out of time in front of my eyes, and I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to just like talk about things I want to do, I'm going to actually do them. So that was a big part of it. And right at that same time, it was not a coincidence, I'm sure it was a God thing. I just happened to watch this video on Netflix, and it was a documentary called Tiny, and it introduced me to this whole concept of tiny houses and tiny living, which I didn't even know existed up until that point. And I was literally just at a pet sit and was just kind of sitting there flipping through Netflix, and I saw this thing called Tiny, and I thought, well, that sounds interesting, like I'll watch that. And so by the end of the 90 minutes, my heart was like racing 100 miles an hour, and I just knew like this is what I need to do. And my mom had left me a very small, modest amount of money when she passed away. And my original intention was just that I would use that for a down payment, and I would get like a condo or a townhouse. And really, after I watched this documentary on tiny houses, I felt like, why in the world would I use the same amount of money and just put a down payment on like a condo or a townhouse that I'm going to be paying for now for the next 30 years of my life, when I could use the same amount of money and I could buy a tiny house outright. I could be mortgage free, I could be rent free. I had already used part of that money to pay off my car and to pay off a bunch of credit cards. So really I was looking at like debt-free living, and I was like, what better tribute to my mom? My mom would be so excited for me if I could actually live debt-free. and have a house that was my own and own it and not have a rent payment, not have a mortgage payment. So that was a huge motivator for me to do that. And really that was really what my motivation was at that point. It really didn't go beyond that. I just thought, you know what, I can be mortgage free, rent free, I can have this cute little house, it's going to be designed just for me, and that was it. So I kind of just went 150 miles an hour because, like I said, I didn't want to follow in my mom's footsteps and my own footsteps, because up to that point I was the person that just thought about stuff and dreamed about stuff, but I didn't actually go out and like make it happen or pursue it. So I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to change that course and I'm going to actually do something about this. So I pretty quickly started researching tiny houses, designed my house, found a builder, and because of that, obviously, I had to downsize my stuff. So again, pretty innocent kind of beginning to it. I really was just downsizing for practical purposes. I was moving into a 160 square foot tiny house. So I had to let go of a lot of stuff because my 2-bedroom condo was like 900 square feet. So I just began downsizing and decluttering my stuff. I've always been an organizer since I was a child. I've always loved straightening things, organizing things, categorizing things. I love office supplies. I love filing systems. So it was actually kind of fun for me to be able to go through all of this stuff. But what surprised me was that when I was doing that, I started to feel this freedom and this like almost like a high that I didn't even know was coming. Like I didn't even realize that was going to happen. But because I didn't feel like I was under the weight of my stuff when I was under it, but it wasn't until I felt the freedom of starting to actually come out from under that weight that I realized how heavy that had been. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been like sort of tied to this stuff and chained to this stuff, and really kind of just chained to the mentality that goes with that I have to have all this stuff. I have to keep all this stuff. What if I need this? What if I need that? And just constantly trying to get stuff and just being sort of in that mindset that a lot of Americans are in, which is just consume, buy, get, just that constant, even if you're not consciously thinking about it, it's just kind of an undercurrent that's just always there. And just the whole thing about like going on a Target run, and like that's nothing against Target in particular, I'm just saying that's what popped in my mind, but like going on a Target run or even going on a Walmart run, whatever, and that you end up like, the joke is you go in for 5 things and you come out with like 25. But even though it's a joke, it's like it's a real thing. Like we really do just consume and buy all this stuff, and like why are we doing that? And so I didn't see any of that in my own life until I started the downsizing and I started to go through my stuff. And then I just really felt like I wanted to get rid of even more. Like the more I started to get rid of stuff, the more I wanted to get rid of stuff, because I just felt like, wow, I actually don't need this. Like I really don't need this. And I was able to start seeing my stuff with more objective eyes and not be so emotionally attached to everything. So I was able to look at a book and see that it was just a book and not whatever my emotional attachment was to that book. So that was another huge part of the process, though, that actually really surprised me. And when I would go and I'd speak at tiny house festivals, this is usually what I like to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people were already talking about the technical part of it and like how to build the house and how to get land and what to do with the trailer and just all those things. And I felt like I wanted to talk about the spiritual and the emotional aspect of it and the benefits of downsizing and the benefits emotionally and spiritually. So that kind of became my mission, I guess, around the whole tiny house and downsizing and decluttering. But it was a surprise for me when I went through it myself. I think like most people thought like, well, stuff is just stuff. And maybe you kind of have a few ideas, like if you have things that belong to somebody that passed away, or like a friendship that you lost contact with them or something like that, those things obviously have an emotional attachment. But I think it was kind of crazy to see even like the other things that weren't so obvious. I had like a whole section of business clothes that were in my closet, And I had been holding on to those, even though I hadn't actually had like a business attire job in like, I don't even know, 5 years or something. I was holding on to it just thinking, well, what if? Like, what if something happens and I end up back in that kind of job? Like, I need these clothes. So even that was an emotion that was attached to those clothes, because it was a fear. It was a fear of like, what if something happens and I'm destitute and I have to like run out and get a temp job and I have to wear these clothes. So again, it was based in an emotion, and even getting rid of those clothes was an emotional action, because I was basically promising myself that I was going to, from that point forward, make decisions that were going to take me towards what I wanted to do, which was do my writing full time. I didn't want to have a 9-to-5 job anymore, and I wasn't going to live in that 1% chance that I might have to go to that kind of job. I was choosing instead to live in the 99% chance that I wasn't going to have to, because at that point I had already been doing my writing. After my mom passed away, I made the commitment to do my writing full time, took that chance, took that leap of faith, inspired by her, and immediately it was confirmed. Immediately I started getting all the kinds of writing jobs. So really, by the time I downsized the following year, I just felt like, I'm not going to be scared anymore. Like, I'm just going to let go of these clothes. So there was a lot of like emotional healing that was going on as I was going through my physical stuff. So that happened with, items that had to do with my father who had passed away, items that had to do with my mom, obviously, who had passed away, items that pertained to like old friendships from when I was a child, things that had to do with my childhood, things that, pictures of old dogs that had passed away. There was just so much emotion in there that I didn't like realize was going to be there until I actually got in there and started doing it. So that was a huge part of the process. And really, I feel like that was what helped me to get healthier, because at the time, and again, this is kind of like a whole separate part of my story, but again, it's in my book. But I also was dealing with advanced adrenal fatigue at that same time. And that was a result of just all the back-to-back traumas that had happened in my life, with both my parents passing away and being in an abusive relationship, and just a lot of traumas and stress just back-to-back. So I had ended up with advanced adrenal fatigue, and my health had just taken like a complete nosedive. And that was happening at the exact same time that I was doing the downsizing and the building of the tiny house. So really, that worked out pretty well. And that's why I was like, that was such God timing. That really, by doing that, by letting go of all this emotion, by letting it come up, let me clarify that. When I would feel those emotions come up, when I was going through the physical stuff, and I'd feel the emotions come up, whatever it was, grief, sadness, anger, bitterness, resentment, whatever it was, instead of ignoring it, pushing it down, being like, oh, okay, whatever, and just blowing it off, I let myself, for the first time, just kind of sit in it and let myself feel whatever it was. And I would journal about it, or I would pray about it, or I would do all of the above, but I would let myself feel it. And that was the difference, because when I actually would let myself go there and let myself feel those emotions and cry if I needed to, or laugh or scream, whatever it was, and like I said, journal about it, pray about it, talk to God about it, that was what actually would allow me to really truly heal and really truly let go of those feelings. And then the physical objects just became objects, because they were all along, but when I finally dealt with the emotions, then I was able to just look at the object and be like, oh, this is literally just a book or just a shirt, because I had already dealt with what was behind it. So that also helped my physical health then, because with adrenal fatigue, it's not like a magic pill or a magic shot that you get. You really just have to do lifestyle changes, and you really have to keep yourself as stress-free as possible. So as I dealt with the physical clutter, it was making me address the emotional clutter, which then was helping my physical health to get better. So it was this awesome cycle that everything was sort of all playing into one another. And really, I didn't stop with the physical stuff. With the physical clutter. Really, once I got started, I was like, I want to like simplify all areas of my life. And again, I should say God really gave me that desire, because I always say this was all his idea. I was not smart enough to think of any of this. He just was guiding me through this whole thing, but he really brought me to this place where I was like, I just want to I want to streamline everything. Like, I want to simplify everything about my life, because of that feeling I got that I was just like, this is amazing. Like, I want to be free, and I want to be light and, excited and alive, like I'm starting to feel. So besides downsizing and decluttering the physical stuff, I changed my diet. I kind of just tried to just streamline and tried to stay like as clean as possible. One day God gave me this image in my mind, and it was kind of just like a circle, and he was like, this is what I created in here. And then outside of this circle is all this other stuff. It's all the toxic food and the toxic products and all the clutter and all the material possessions and all the emotional baggage and all that stuff, that noise, that static that we're just all bombarded with. That's all kind of outside the circle. And this is what I created. This is like the healthy food and the healthy natural remedies and natural products and the peace and the joy and the contentment. And he's like, just try to stay as close as possible to that circle. Now, of course, we're never all going to be perfect, so that's why it was kind of more of like a as close as possible kind of thing. But I always remember that vision and remember that general idea that like I want to stay as close as possible to that natural creation of what God made. And so again, as I went through this process, I just felt like, okay, I want to clean my products. I want to clean my my food and drink that I put in my body, the products I put on my body, the clutter. I really wanted to deal with all that emotional baggage. I just wanted to face it and just get rid of it. And, spiritual as well. There was a lot of spiritual stuff that had to be worked through. And that is really where my relationship with God changed. And I would say, I say it changed because I had been saved since I was 27. And I did my tiny house 5 years ago, so I was 37. So for about 10 years I had already been saved, and I prayed and I went to church, and I think I felt like I heard from God here and there, especially when I was like in my old relationship. I did hear from God prompting me about certain things about that relationship, and I certainly had some crazy encounters where God had prompted me with some stuff about my mom. So I had heard from him, but I guess I really didn't feel like I had much of like a relationship with him. And really, when I did the downsizing and did all that just decluttering and simplifying of my life, just simplifying everything, it brought me to this awesome place where I was just more like centered and just more peaceful and just more, there was less competing for my attention. There was less stuff trying to get my attention. And I wasn't worried about like just accumulating things. I wasn't worried about binge watching shows on television. I wasn't worried about like all this drama with like emotional baggage and things being bombarded to me about society and what I should look like or what I should, you know what I mean? Like, it was as he was doing this healing work in me, it was quieting all of that. And even to the point where I like would start turning the radio off in the car, and as much as that might not seem significant, it was really significant for me because I always had to have noise on in the background. I couldn't stand being in silence. And that was something else that I felt like God worked on with me, where he just was like, this is where I can talk to you the easiest is in silence. And so I would start to, have these times where I'd make sure I turned the radio off in the car, or I'd make sure I didn't have the TV on in the background at home, and just, again, getting rid of all of that noise and all of that clutter. And that is when I would say my relationship with God just really took off. And that's when it became an actual relationship, which is what it's supposed to be. Like, that's what he wants with all of us. That's the whole point of everything. That's why Jesus came, was so that things would change, and it wouldn't be about these religious rules and rituals and laws, that it would become a relationship. And I mean, that's kind of the whole point. But like I said, I really, up to that point, even though I'd been saved for 10 years, didn't get that and didn't quite understand like the degree to what he meant. And so really, because I had just gotten all of that out of the way, And honestly, on a practical level, he was my like counselor, doctor. Well, I did go to a naturopathic doctor who did help me with some physical things, but he was my counselor. Like, I couldn't afford to go to a counselor. Plus, with adrenal fatigue, I couldn't actually get up and like get out of the house most days. So it was just me and him, just sitting in my bedroom, just me praying and journaling, and him bringing stuff up, and us just talking. And so, because of that, it obviously made our relationship closer, because I was just going to him with everything and saying, okay, like, how do I heal this? How do I get over this? How do I let this go? How do I stop believing this lie about myself? How do I stop believing this lie about, this person, whatever it was. And that really just, it created an intimacy and a closeness there that then has now become the norm for my life. So now, like, I'm used to that kind of relationship where I can think back and I'm like, how did I even live a different way? So that was a huge, huge blessing that I didn't see coming. Of course, he knew what he was doing all along. And then what ended up happening even still out of that was that I had thought that my Live a Fast Life platform and me talking to people about simplifying, helping them declutter, helping them downsize, helping them eat healthy, I had thought that was sort of the end goal. I thought, wow, this is what my purpose is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was great for a while. I mean, there was absolutely nothing bad about it. It was great. And I had wonderful, wonderful emails and interactions with people that I was able to encourage them or educate them. And I really feel like I was making a difference with that. But the interesting thing was that once I went through that simplifying process and I got to a point where I was hearing his voice more clearly, I was going to him more frequently, and that relationship was growing, and I was getting more spiritually strong and mature. Then I realized that what he actually was working me towards was this. So working me towards Iris Ministries, towards the next couple books that are coming, towards doing workshops and conferences and retreats, to where I'm actually helping people discover their own God-given purpose, get closer with God, get that deep intimacy, that deep relationship with him, find him if they don't even know him, find that relationship with him, realize he's real, that he's there, and then again, if you already know that and you're already in relationship with him, deepen that relationship, deepen that trust and that intimacy and that closeness. And really, like, that whole thing, this ministry, this encouraging, this inspiring, this leading people and helping them, that was the end goal. So the simplifying was actually just means to that end, but I didn't realize it. I thought at the time that, like, that was the end goal. So what was so cool about the whole thing was that really the simplifying and the decluttering and the downsizing and everything was an awesome way that he got me to the place I needed to be, where then I could then clearly see my purpose, clearly hear my purpose, and not just that, but actually feel like I was prepared for it. So where I'm at now with my personal journey is that I have moved on from Live a Fast Life and am now fully focusing on Iris. But what I really feel like I want to do with you guys and with everyone that I come in contact with and along this journey is that I want to sort of do both. Like, I want to, of course, do the mission of this ministry and help people to develop their relationship with God, find their direction, find their purpose, hear his voice, hear his heart, know him, trust him, experience the cool, awesome things that he has in store for you. But also, if you're where I was, help you to simplify your life so you can get to that point, so you can stop feeling so overwhelmed, so you can stop feeling so staticky and so noisy and so busy, so that you can actually hear him and you can actually follow through on some of these things that he has for you to do. So I hope that this was inspiring. I hope that it was encouraging for you. Again, like, I feel like I want to share my personal stories along my journey because I feel like they're very relatable. I'm not by any means like, some expert that was like living on a mountaintop, like doing meditation every day. And, you know, I was just an average person, just walking through my life. And these are just really cool things that I feel like God has done in my life. And I just want to share them with you guys and hopefully encourage you and inspire you along the way. So if you are interested in simplifying your life or decluttering or downsizing, you can absolutely use the email that's down below and reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions I could. And really, I hope, again, that it just encourages you to maybe start thinking about how you could simplify your life. Don't try to take everything on at once. You'll overwhelm yourself, but there's always some little way, some little piece of your life that could be simplified. And then really, like I said, once you do that, it kind of starts this momentum and it starts this ball rolling that you'll really want to keep going. So I hope that you will take some time to think about that in your own life, and even just do, like I said, maybe pray about it, journal about it, ask God, like, where can I make some changes? Where can I simplify in my life? Or if you already know, then just like take a step, just do something small. Even if it's just working on one closet of your house. It might seem like, how is working on one closet of my house going to get me to my purpose in life? But I promise you, it can. It really can, because it's a matter of switching your focus and switching your priorities and really just being intentional and changing your perspective. And that is what then is going to allow those other avenues to open up and allow you to really find your purpose and step out in it. So thank you guys so much for listening to my story, and I hope that you will, again, subscribe. And again, my email's down below, so let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.